Seeing your grocery cart shrink while your savings account balance looks the same is not a coincidence. It is your money slipping behind prices. Leaving long-term cash in a plain savings account because the balance feels safe is the habit that causes it. What actually happens is simple. Prices climb, interest lags, and the real value of your money sinks, even if the numbers on the screen never drop. Picture yourself saving steadily for a future goal, checking the account and feeling stable, while the goal is walking away a little farther each season without making a sound. Inflation is not one price going up, it is many prices rising across the economy. That matters because your dollars are only useful for what they can buy, not for how many characters show on a statement. If the prices of the things you need and want move up faster than your savings grow, you lose ground. You do not feel it during deposit day, you feel it at checkout, at the gas pump, or when the contractor quotes materials. Inflation is a headwind. If you do nothing, it pushes you backward, and it does not care that you are trying. When inflation runs around 3% a year, your cash has to grow faster than that just to stand still. That is the minimum bar for preserving buying power. Anything less is a quiet pay cut to your future self. Treat it as a baseline, not a worst case. Banks pay interest in nominal terms, which means before considering price changes. Your statement does not show a line for how much buying power you lost. It just shows a tidy addition of interest, and that is what fools people. The question that matters is not how much interest you earned, but whether that interest kept you even with the rise in costs you actually face. Most basic savings accounts pay around 1% in ordinary times, sometimes less. The ads might highlight a special, but the core account sits low. It is designed for storage and payments, not growth. If you treat it like an all-purpose parking lot for long-term goals, you carry the cost of that low rate for years. This is the mistake pattern. You deposit, the balance ticks a little higher, you assume progress, and you postpone deciding on a better place for the money. Meanwhile, prices drift up, so the tiny earnings do not cover the difference. You are running just fast enough to feel busy and just slow enough to fall behind. That is how goals get delayed without any obvious crisis. Here is a real-life example. A friend saved diligently for a reliable used car. She watched the balance grow in a standard savings account and waited for a good deal. Dealers did not raise prices in front of her. They just updated listings slowly, cut fewer deals, and added small fees. After a stretch of steady saving, she had more cash but could only afford fewer miles or older models. Nothing dramatic happened. She just fed a plan that could not beat the drift. The most common beginner mistake with inflation is treating all savings the same, as if time horizon does not change the rules. Money for next month, next season, and next decade end up in the same account because it is easy. Or everything stays in cash out of fear of volatility. That is backwards. Volatility is a risk for money you need soon. Inflation is a risk for money you will not touch for a long time. Mixing them guarantees you take the wrong risk with each dollar. Across 10 years, a flat-looking balance can mask a large cut in buying power. You will not notice it daily. You will notice it when a goal takes longer, a budget gap keeps showing up, or a purchase list gets shorter than you planned. That is the practical cost. You either save more, settle for less, or delay. None of those are clever trades if you could have positioned the money better at the start. The correction is straightforward. Split savings by purpose and by timing. Cash for emergencies and near-term purchases should be safe and ready. Money for medium-term goals should work a little harder without wild swings. Money for long-term goals needs growth that beats prices by a margin, which means accepting market movement in exchange for higher expected returns. You are not chasing excitement, you are matching the tool to the job. For near-term cash, use a high-yield savings account or a solid money market fund and let it sit where it is easy to access. For medium-term cash, consider a ladder of certificates of deposit or treasury bills so part of it matures regularly and stays productive while you wait. For long-term money, use broad low-cost index funds and, if you are cautious about inflation, add some Treasury inflation-protected securities. For bonds and cash-like tools, focus on safety and liquidity. For stocks, focus on diversified exposure and time in the market, not perfect timing. For inflation-protected bonds, understand what they do. They adjust with measured inflation so the real value holds steadier across years. No single option is magic, but the mix removes the slow leak. For goals about 5 years out, you cannot ignore price growth and you also cannot bet the whole pile on a market that can swing hard in the short term. This is the tricky middle. The solution is to build a plan where a portion earns steadier yields, while a portion has measured growth potential, and you shift gradually more conservative as the date approaches. It is slower than stocks alone and stronger than plain cash. That middle ground keeps you from showing up at the finish line short purely because you parked everything in the easiest account and hoped. Do the mechanics like a pro, not like a tourist. Label your accounts by job. One for near-term needs, one for medium-term goals, one for long-term growth. Set automatic transfers on payday into each bucket, so inertia works for you. Rename accounts with the actual purpose so you cannot lie to yourself about rating them. Pick one day each season to review and rebalance. This is boring in the best way, and that is how you stay ahead of slow, predictable problems. A basic treasury bill ladder built from 1-year maturities is a solid example of how to make idle money earn without trapping it. Stagger the purchases so something comes due regularly. If you need cash, you have a maturing piece. If you do not need cash, you roll it forward. That is low drama, and it beats. Telling yourself your low-rate savings is fine because it is easy. A quick note on tools people ignore out of habit. Series I savings bonds are designed to track inflation for savers, though they come with purchase limits and early redemption rules you should read. Treasury inflation-protected securities adjust principal with measured inflation. Held to maturity, they protect the real value, and in a diversified mix, they are useful ballast. Money market funds can be a good parking spot in the short term, but they still live in a world where yields move, so they are not magic either. The point is to use what fits the need, not to collect jargon. Do not let the fear of volatility shove everything into cash forever. Volatility is loud and brief. Inflation is quiet and permanent. If you need money soon, you protect it. If you do not need it for a long time, you let it work, and you accept that screens will move while purchasing power builds. You do not fix inflation risk by pretending the problem belongs to someone else. You fix it by matching horizon to vehicle and letting time do what it does for assets that actually grow. Another hidden error is measuring progress in nominal milestones instead of what those milestones buy. People high-five an account balance that sounds big and ignore that it no longer buys the same basket of life it used to. Fix that by setting goals in real terms. If the goal is college, define it as the program you want at the kind of institution you expect, not a round number that felt right last year. If the goal is a home, track the market you want to buy in, not a generic figure you picked in a vacuum. This keeps your savings target connected to the thing you're buying, which is the only number that matters. When your budget categories never move, you silently cut what each dollar can do. Check a few core categories against current prices and update them. If that breaks the budget, that is a signal to adjust income moves, find waste, or change timelines. It is not a reason to deny reality. Audiobooks cost what they cost. Childcare costs what it costs. Repairs and parts drift up. You stay functional by updating the plan, not by insisting the old numbers still fit. The key shift is this. Stop judging money by the balance alone and start judging it by the future purchase it protects. Cash is a tool for access and stability, not a warehouse for long-term goals. Prices move. Your plan should move too. If you align where each dollar lives with when you will spend it, inflation becomes a factor you manage, not a force that quietly rewrites your future. Next, we get practical about what taxes do to income, because your take-home pay is the raw material for all of this, and knowing how the tax bite works makes every savings decision cleaner.